I was in my early 40s. Something happened in my professional life that really caused me to completely collapse. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to get out of bed. I was so distressed. I think it's the biggest secret in our industries and in project management that we all are exposed to extreme challenges and extreme stress, and nobody seems to talk about it.
This is Sunchana Johnston. She's a former student of mine and now a longtime project portfolio manager working in finance and engineering. She's also a newly minted author. And that's why I wanted to speak with her about the topic of her book, Stress in Mental Health for Project Managers, Project Controls People. This is incredibly timely and relevant, and it's something that we don't have a chance to discuss very often. This is a bit of a different video for us because this is a long-form conversation, but one that I felt was really in-depth, where I shared some of myself, and Sunchana certainly shared some incredible information about her past and what she's lived through, and also sharing some tips on how she uses and draws from her past experiences in order to help her function better in a stressful and challenging work environment. This topic of mental health and stress, what a great and timely topic, and one that we're not hearing about in project management per se. At least I'm not hearing about it. We don't hear it about it in project controls at all. But we're definitely aware of stats like the construction industry, where we do a lot of work, has the highest suicide rate I think it's in North America of any other industry. So I'm just curious, you've written this book. What brought you here to this topic of mental health in project management?
I think it's the biggest secret in our industries and in project management that we all are exposed to extreme challenges and extreme stress at a time. At any point in our career, we will be experiencing stress, albeit good stress or bad stress. And that's what I talk about in my book. The reason why I decided to do it, to speak up, is that just as you are saying, the stats are staggering as to what's happening in the background, and nobody seems to talk about it. And for me, we lost a dear colleague who took his own life because of stress at work. And it's heartbreaking, and I just feel I want to do my bit. I want to say, it's happened to me, and this is what I've done. And I hope that if I'm sharing that with you, you will take the bits that you find relevant for yourselves and implement it before it gets to the stage that you can't cope, because that's where it leads. The chronic pressures and anxiety and stress at work actually leads a lot to mental breakdowns, leads to burnouts. And of course, if you're burned out, means not just you can't work and earn your living, but it will affect your family life and people around you. And if you don't have that support network, either at work or at home, ideally both, to support you, really horrid things can happen, Michael. And that's not on. I don't think that's on.
Well, it's tragic to hear about your colleague. These are the sort of things that we look back on and we think how preventable that could have been. And because maybe there's a stigma of not talking about it and keeping our mental health close to ourselves, there might not have been an avenue to go and reach out to that person, to your colleague, and just, help them and get them the resources they needed. And that, I agree, is really tragic. How has stress affected you personally? What's it like being a portfolio manager and having, what's your own story about stress?
This is a really strange story, Michael, because my background is different in a sense that I was born and raised in Croatia, which at the time was a former Yugoslav country, one of the former Yugoslav countries. And I had a really jolly childhood and youth and, you know, happy-go-lucky type of person. And I studied agricultural engineering. I was sponsored throughout that study. And I was quite happy with my life, to be honest, up until 1991, when somebody decided to start a war in eastern part of Croatia, very close to where I lived, which kind of put a spanner in the works a little bit for the rest of us. And then all of a sudden war happens, and all of a sudden the stress goes from non-existent, bad stress, goes to extreme, really goes to extreme, up to extreme. So during that time, it was actually really strange to what was happening to us, that most of us got into this automatic cope with stress the best you can, cope with stress the best you can, do a risk assessment quick. There is an air raid now, you know, they're coming every 2 hours. Within those 2 hours, I need to get from A to B. What's my plan of action? What's my risk assessment to hit the milestones? So, you know, it's happening like that. And those decisions that I took with my friends and family affected our lives. So I took that happened to me in my early 20s to whatever I do in life, that's what I do. I do a quick risk assessment. Does that make sense? What do I need to do to get from A to B? How do I do it quickly so that chap up there in MiG-21 doesn't shoot me? So I'm covered, and I achieve success. And this is really strange, Michael. It works a treat. So any board meeting where I have to present my end-to-end integrated Primavera P6 program plan, it's a walk in a park, because I know there is no chap up there in MiG-21.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do know. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
So I took that, what I learned throughout my early life, and just through education, through challenges, later on, and I just applied that again and again, and I thought I coped fairly well, Michael, with stress throughout. And then I was in my early 40s. Something happened in my professional life that really caused me to completely collapse. I was quite cross with myself, Michael. I was actually quite cross with myself that allowed to myself to get to that burnout stage. And I was literally unable to move. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to get out of bed. I was so distressed. I was, you get all the symptoms that you didn't notice before. Like, I felt unwell. I didn't want to get up in the morning. I was constantly, I couldn't focus. There was like a mental fog in my head.
Yeah.
So that was one period where, it was quite hard for my family and for my friends and for myself, but I had a good support network at work. I wasn't a contractor. I was a permanent member of staff, and I reached out, and these people really helped me. So I thought, if they helped me, and I got better and better, Michael, I got fantastic jobs afterwards. I completely turned my professional life around. Anything that I wasn't happy with that caused me that distress, I eliminated almost one by one, and enabled me to go into these really difficult meetings at board level and to defend a plan that I know it has more holes than Swiss cheese to a professional, but it has enough content for the senior management to be able to make their decisions. It's not perfect by any means, but it has a critical path. And we did a forwards pass, we did a backwards pass. It has a solid critical path that I can defend, and I'm not stressed. So it's those kind of things that affected me throughout the life. And that I just feel managing workplace stress for me is as important, if not even more, than any of our technical teachings and technical abilities. It really is paramount that we can cope with stress in a positive manner. So
thank you for sharing that. I think it's important to also just speak about things that we've been through. And this is, I think it's part of the mental health journey. Just so you know where I'm coming from, my wife actually is a psychotherapist. Just for everybody else and for myself, like I'm in therapy. I speak to therapists every week, and I've been through some things in my life as well, but it's just something that for me is it just keeps me going. Like I need to have a space where I can share what's going on in me and to be able to have somebody receive it. So I think these are some of the things, like you're talking about, we're not able to share. We're a society that is still very guarded. There's a lot of cultural expectations, a lot of cultural, let's say, cultural stuff that holds us kind of locked in these stances of, continuing to do the same things we've done over and over. And so I'm glad you're bringing this conversation to talk about stress. There's some other topics in there that are very relevant. Your topics where you discuss what it's like to be a woman in project management and what it was like to be early in your career as well, to feel like that, to feel accepted and confident in yourself in this kind of world. And I wonder if you can just take a minute and speak to that.
Yes, of course. And thank you for sharing what you just said, Michael. That's incredible. And I really take my hat off, my project management hat off to you for doing so. And I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and keep on going. If that works for you, that is fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. And I really appreciate this call. It may not be the easiest of conversations. So all of this, for me, being a woman in engineering, stems back to where I come from, where all of us were treated equally. My mother always worked throughout her life. She was a single working mother. She brought me up partially on a farm. And so it was normal for me that I would be going into engineering because she didn't get to get a degree. So that's how she brought me up. It was normal for me to obtain complete all-paid scholarship from the county to do so. It was normal for me to join my colleagues on the engineering course and to be treated as an equal. And that's what I brought with me when I moved to the UK. I still had that outlook on life. So no matter what others think, as far as I'm concerned, I am equal. And you will treat me as an equal, or I will not be there for you to treat me at all.
Yeah.
And that worked really well, Michael. I worked for a telecoms company in the olden days called CompuServe. Have you ever heard of CompuServe?
I have heard of CompuServe. I've been around long enough that CompuServe, I think, had a dial-up service, and I'm dating myself, but that's a long time ago. Yeah.
I still have a yellow t-shirt, Michael, and it says CompuServe.
Wow, that's incredible.
But it was just such a great bunch of people from all walks of life, from all over the world, who got together and did an amazing job building data centers. So we ended up building data centers across Europe. That was my first project management job.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying to Michael. It was such a joy. It was such a joy working with people from Germany, in Oslo, from traveling around. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I was treated as an equal. So I loved it. Yeah. So the stress that I experienced there are two types of stress. You will remember.
Mm-hmm.
The good stress is eustress. The bad stress is distress. So the good stress that we had in those days was incredible. Loved it, loved it, loved it. We were flying with enthusiasm and went way beyond our expectations.
And when you say let me just stop you there for a second. When you say there's good stress, so this would kind of be the stress that brings people together towards a common goal, right? We're all working together and we're going to see if we can accomplish this thing, that kind of good stress.
That's the one.
Yeah. And then the bad stress is, oh my God, it's yeah, I'm never going to be able to accomplish this. We've set up a game that I can't win, that kind of stress.
Yeah, so you've got good stress on one side and you've got bad stress. And this is what triggers bad stress, I understand. And I've got the whole section in a book is, for example, prolonged working hours over a period of time.
Mm.
If you're working long hours all the time, that will catch up with you. That will catch up with you.
Yeah.
That's one of them. If you're working in a toxic, what's called a toxic culture, blame culture, where, for example, I've had some bosses, even as a freelancer, that would set up meetings with me on Monday morning at 8:30. Now, you would think, what can I tell them about my about my workload at 8:30 on Monday morning that I couldn't have told them on Friday?
Right.
Nothing had happened over the weekend. In my world, I went shopping. I've done Christmas shopping, if that's what we want to talk about. So, but it's those kind of, and a lot of people are experiencing bad stress when, for example, it's Sunday evening and they get really bad feeling in their stomachs and they know they don't want to go Monday to work.
Right. Yes. Yep.
That's an indication. Yeah. So that's an indication that something isn't right. And I think we need to, if you're experiencing that, step back and think, okay, what is happening to me? Why is it that I don't want to go to work on Monday morning? I love my job, right? I know I've done a good job. So what is happening here? So this is where we need to stop and pause, things like that.
Yeah. That's a really good piece of advice, because sometimes it may not be about the job itself or the work itself, but maybe it's a relationship that's challenging and you don't know how to navigate it, or maybe, you can imagine there could be all sorts of reasons, right?
What I've found as a woman in engineering is that you have to earn your trust with your colleagues, irrespective of which gender they are. So you have to earn your trust. So if I say to my colleagues, I'm going to do something, I'm really going to do that. I'm going to really see that through to my best of ability, or I will come back and say, I couldn't do that because of X, Y, Z. What do you think? How do we approach it from here? So that's how I've always done it. And another instance that I had in the financial services was I was put in place as a planning director on one of the portfolios where the PMs just didn't have the time to use the tool, or they just were not interested. For some reason, they were not using the tool for their plans, even if they had any.
I'm familiar with that.
What I had to do is I had to go into a big meeting where we had those PMs that were still stuck in that mud of we are not moving, and the mud got really kind of hard and dry. We're not moving from our position.
Yeah.
I had senior management saying, I want to see an integrated plan, which Sunchana is putting together. Hence, we need your individual project plans to feed into that overall end-to-end integrated plan, or integrated plans. And I remember just before I went into that meeting, one of my colleagues, who was a fellow female, she said to me, are you okay, Sunchana, going in? And I said to her, look, I was in that halls of residence with no cellar. looking onto MiG-25 is above me. I can do this. I did. And I did go into that session, and I presented the case where we were and why I could present an integrated plan with holes, with gaps, we call it, sorry, with gaps. Gaps.
Very PC, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Rather than Swiss cheese, here's your Swiss cheese. And then I also said about capabilities and what can we do to bring people up. And I think the key there is not to be personal, not to blame, not to just try to be kind of realistic about what was going on. And, you know, we did move forward. Yeah, until the next time, really.
Well, what's really apparent to me, and you've said this a couple of times, is how you've drawn on your past incredibly difficult challenges to help you get through a current challenge. You're like, well, I did that, you know, that was like 100 times worse than being in the boardroom to talk about this. I find that really interesting. That's a really great use of your past experiences. You know, what I think happens with people is when they feel stress can be so all encompassing. And what you don't realize is that inside you, there's a great theory of in psychotherapy, and it goes like this: we have different parts. There's different parts of us. There's a part that's prone to being really stressed and very worried about it, and that's where a lot of our anxiety can live. But there's other parts of us. There might be parts of us that are the strong doer. There might be parts of us that are chill. You know, you kind of have all these different parts. And what happens is you have this anxiety part that just, you know, takes up all the space in the room. And what you can do is you can help that anxiety part. It's almost like it's a person. You could talk to it. You can say, hey, anxiety, you know, anxiety, Michael, I see you're really, you know, it's important to acknowledge it. It's like, I see you're really stressed about this. But do you remember that we did this other thing over here? Or do you remember how chill you felt when you were, you know, I don't know, about to go skydiving, for example? I've never done skydiving. It's a terrible example. But you can have a conversation with these parts of you to just like help them step back a little bit, like help them realize that there's lots of you in here, and that's just one part of you. And yeah, it took up all the space, but you can help it to kind of calm down. And that's what I see you doing there when you're drawing on those other experiences. You're kind of saying, hey, there's stress here, but it doesn't have to be this much. You know, I can let it be only this much. It's interesting stuff, Sunchana.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more with you, Michael. That's exactly right. And I think I find it that stress will happen anyway, right? So let's put it that way. Stress will happen anyway. It is how we react to those events that really makes us or breaks us. And we need to make sure that we love ourselves first. This may sound harsh to somebody, but we really need to, as you say, remind ourselves, what is it about me that is actually really good? I've done this, this, and this. Yeah, that was really good. I am sure that there are other areas where I can improve. I think you can always ask for feedback, and a constructive, when you get the feedback, right? So you get a feedback, A to B, from somebody that you trust, most probably, hopefully. You can then, it's within your gift to choose of that feedback, what are you going to accept? And also it helps if more than one person says the same thing, then all of a sudden, wait a minute, I'm sure there is something there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
It's how we react to that stress, how we react to feedback when something goes wrong. And for females like me, it's accepting that we are not perfect. And to probably for me is the fact to stop pretending that I'm perfect or that my program plans will be perfect. There is no perfection. It's so overrated.
Yeah.
By the time you
Just
finish,
take the pressure off trying to be perfect, right? Like no one can be perfect in this world. Yeah.
that's correct. And the
Yeah.
other one is multitasking. A lot of people think that multitasking is a good thing. I've found at this point in my life that I've abandoned multitasking, and that's another red herring as far as I'm concerned. I really want to focus on one thing at the time. One thing at the time. Also, the way that I'm helping myself is I now work in iterations. So as far as I'm concerned, it's Sunchana Agile Hybrid model, which means that I will assess the situation. Remember my risk assessment and MiG 25? Yes. So I'll assess the situation. If I'm given a task of any kind, I'll do a risk assessment, quick mental risk assessment. I'll then walk away, come back, make a cup of tea, come back, and then I'll do a plan from A to B, how I think I can approach that. Then again, go back, have a piece of chocolate, come back, and then start working in iterations. So it's 30 minutes and stop, 30 minutes and stop, 30 minutes and stop. And that works for me. Yeah, that works for me.
Wow, that's great. That's a great tool. The Sunchana Agile 30-minute iteration method. I like that there. But I mean, I think this is in line with a lot of other popular kind of personal productivity things where, yeah, multitasking doesn't work. Find ways to focus, cut everything out, focus on something. So what you're doing is you're setting some boundaries, 30 minutes of focus time. How do I focus and work on that and not do it perfectly, right? And let go of this need to be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. The top 3 tips for project managers who are stressed to make their lives much better is, number 1 is speak to people like Michael, myself, and read the book. I would say that, wouldn't I? And then first tip is really do understand what are the stress triggers, what are the stress causes. Try to understand what is happening to you. So take a breather and now have a think. What is happening around you? And, you need to get to the root causes of what is causing you really distress and anxiety. So that's number 1. Number 2, once that you've gathered that information, ask for help. So you really, 9 out of 10, you really need somebody else that you trust, and that can be somebody who is with you, like your partner. That could be one of your close friends. That could be your GP. That could be possibly somebody at work, but I would probably stay away from it. You need a person that you trust, that you will talk about this. Right?
That one's great. And I want to really encourage people to, if you don't have people like these in your life, like, it's super helpful to have people that you can go to. So there's all sorts of ways to find those people and grow those relationships. But like, having people that you can, who are not in your workplace, that you can have discussions about your life, your challenges, maybe even your relationship, other things. A therapist is one way, but it doesn't have to be a therapist. So that's great advice. Thank you.
The third tip is really that we need to achieve mindfulness. And this is not an easy task. We need to achieve this happy place, and it will not be an easy thing to do. So you need to look at your exercises. You need to look at any physical activities that you're doing, albeit walking in nature. If you like the gym, going to a gym. Something that you enjoy, yoga classes. If you like yoga, dancing. A lot of people like dancing. Why not? So do some kind of physical and, if possible, social activity that will keep you going outside work, step away from the computer. Look at your diet, Look at how you're eating, make sure you've got healthy eating, make sure you enjoy your food and you have time for that. Make sure you've got good qualifications behind you, good training. Michael, you provide fantastic stuff there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Make sure that at work, you know what to do if the bad stress is getting to you. So most organizations we work for will have processes in place to help us. So we really need to look at that. And finally is that work is not everything. Sorry, but the world will not stop. Your company will not stop in its tracks if you take a day off. So do take a day off. Go out, spend some time with your family, go and feed the ducks, walk the dog, do something that will make you happy. It doesn't need to be anything huge, just something that makes you happy. So you're refreshed and you come back to work.
Yeah.
So this would be my top tips, I think.
I want to add one more thing in here. A lot of us, again, there's a cultural thing about, talking to somebody about your problems. Like, oh, I don't need that. That's only for people who are, have chronic depression, or that's only for people who are, alcoholics, or who have gone through some cataclysmic trauma or something like that. And I think everybody, the belief in psychotherapy is actually that everybody has trauma. Everybody has trauma, and you may not realize what it is, but you have lived through something, gone through something that deeply affected you, and you're carrying around with you. And the other, it doesn't matter if somebody had something much worse. This is the other thing, is we like to compare ourselves to other people. Well, that person went through something incredibly more challenging than me. I should be fine. No, everybody is the same. Everybody, regardless if you went through something cataclysmic or not. It could be a series of, death by 1,000 cuts is another way to die, right? It doesn't have to be your head was chopped off in an instant. So everybody has some stress, trauma, anxiety. Everybody, and what the purpose here is just to normalize it and to say, hey, if I'm feeling stressed, I'm a normal person and I can talk to somebody. I don't have to have gone through some cataclysmic traumatic event to reach out to talk to somebody about what's going on inside of me. That, I think, is a big cultural norm that we have to work on.
I love that. That is fantastic. I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely spot on. Very often we don't know that we've been through it. I had that with my partner, actually. And Michael, you're so right. So right. Yeah. In terms of where I want to go with this book is I would like to take it on a road. So I'm thinking about some interactive workshops. I'm looking at a number of things to make people's lives easier and less stressful. I think what I'm going to do first, I've spoken to you and I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
I'm grateful too.
Thank you. And I'm planning a podcast, so bear with me. I've never done anything like that. So hopefully that's one other thing. And as I say, I've got some workshops in mind and I'm just going through the creative process at the minute, Michael. I just want to find a way to support people, and I want the stress management to become a normal, integral part of project management that we do. Yeah.
Like it would be a chapter in the PMBOK.
That's correct.
Oh, wow. That's an idea, right? But like, if it was a training manual, a corporate training manual on stress for project managers, I'm not going to read it.
I know.
You're going to tell me your story. I'm invested. I want to know, I want to hear your story. So keep telling your story. That's part of it, even for me, I had the opportunity here to share a little bit of my story, and
Yes.
that was even me stepping out of my comfort zone to talk about, my some of my stuff a little bit, just not as much as yours, but just a hair. So but we all have stress, and I think it's important that we talk about it here in project management, project controls as well. So thank you for bringing that. Thanks for bringing that out.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much, Michael. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. As I mentioned in the intro, this is the first time we've done a long form conversation like this, and I'd love to have your feedback. Please leave us a comment below the video. Let us know what you thought. Would you like to see more of this, less of this, something different? Please make sure you check out Sunchana's book. There's a link to it below in the description as well. As always, happy planning. Michael out.